Her name was Sarah, but in her family, a bloodline cursed by poverty, abandoned by love, and choked by stagnation for 3 generations. Her name might as well have been. Next, Sarah grew up in a family where suffering wasn't just common, it was almost expected. It flowed like a river from her grandmother to her mother, and from her mother to her sisters. Her grandmother died in poverty. Her mother endured heartbreak after heartbreak, abandoned by every man she ever trusted. Her 2 older sisters dropped out of school because of early pregnancies. Living the same painful cycle, every woman in the family carried the same story: loss, lack, heartbreak, confusion, stagnation. It was as if something dark hovered over the bloodline, choking every attempt at progress. But Sarah, 23, quiet, observant, felt different. She felt like she didn't belong to the pattern she was born into. Even as a child, she could sense that something was wrong, something invisible yet powerful, something spiritual. One stormy night, everything shifted. Rain slapped the windows like angry hands. Inside their tiny house, Sarah heard a loud crash. She ran into the living room and found her mother on the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. Another heartbreak, another man leaving, another cycle repeating. Sarah knelt beside her. "Mama, what happened?" Her mother lifted her swollen eyes, her voice shaking. "He left, like the others. They always leave. It's like we were cursed from birth." That word cursed stabbed Sarah. She'd always suspected it, felt it, sensed it, but hearing her mother confirm it crushed her. "I think it's our family," her mother continued. "No woman ever stays happy. No woman ever keeps a home. No woman ever rises." Sarah hugged her tightly as the storm thundered outside. In that moment, something fierce awakened inside her. She whispered, almost like a vow, "Not me. This cycle ends with me." The next morning, Sarah woke up with a heaviness pressing on her spirit. Not sadness, war. Her mind replayed her mother's words, the pain, the pattern. She began to notice details she had ignored for years. How every woman in her family experienced the same heartbreak, how progress never lasted, how poverty clung to them like a shadow, how strange dreams ran in the family, how every attempt to escape the pattern failed. It was too consistent to be coincidence. That evening, on her way home from the market, she met an elderly woman standing near their gate. She had never seen her before. The woman stared at Sarah with eyes that felt too knowing, too deep. Then she said something that made Sarah's chest tighten. "Your fight is not with people, child. Your fight is with what fought your grandmother." Sarah froze. How do you know my grandmother?" The woman gave a sad smile. "Generational battles carry familiar fingerprints. I can see them on you." "Who are you?" Sarah whispered. The woman shook her head gently. "A witness. Someone who knows what curses look like, and someone who knows what cycle breakers look like, and you are one." Then she walked away slowly, leaving Sarah trembling. Cycle breaker. The words followed her into the house, echoing in her mind like prophecy. That night, Sarah had a dream so vivid it felt more real than reality. She saw herself in a dark room. At the far end sat a massive, shadowy figure on a throne made of broken chains. He stared at her with red, mocking eyes. Around him were images of the women in her family, her grandmother weeping, her mother being abandoned, her sisters in distress, and then herself, bound, struggling, chained. The figure pointed at her and hissed, "You will not escape. You are one of them." Sarah jerked awake, trembling, drenched in sweat. Her breath came in gasps. Her mother ran into the room asking what happened, but Sarah couldn't speak. She knew now without doubt that what her family suffered was not normal. Something spiritual was fighting them, and she had just been pulled into the center of the war. The following Sunday, Sarah went to church. She hadn't been praying consistently, but something pulled her there. She sat at the back, thinking she could hide among the crowd. But when the preacher grabbed the microphone, his voice cut through the atmosphere like a sword. "Some of you," he declared, "were born to break cycles. Hell has fought you since childhood because you are the one, not your mother. Not your sisters, you. Sarah's heart stopped. She began to cry silently, trying to hide her shaking shoulders. But the preacher continued, "There is a voice telling you your story will end like your family's story, but God sent me to tell you, no, this cycle ends with you." The tears came harder. It felt like God had exposed her life in public. Then the preacher said, "Bring that generational burden to the altar. Don't walk with what destroyed the women before you." Sarah didn't think. She ran to the altar like something was pulling her. She fell to her knees and sobbed from the deepest part of her soul. She cried for her mother, for her sisters, for herself, for her future children. Something broke that day, but the battle was far from over. Once she decided to fight, the attacks increased. Her part-time job suddenly ended. Her sister returned home crying from another heartbreak. Strange scratch marks appeared on Sarah's wall. Her nightmares intensified. Every night a dark voice whispered, "You're next. You can't escape this." Whenever she tried to pray, her voice would choke. Whenever she tried to worship, she felt a heavy presence pressing on her chest. The enemy was angry. Hell was threatened. A cycle breaker had risen, and darkness fought her with everything it had. But Sarah refused to quit. She prayed even when her voice trembled. She read scripture even when her eyes burned from tears. She whispered, "This ends with me," every morning like a battle cry. One night, she dreamt again. The same dark figure appeared. This time she wasn't terrified. He growled, "Why do you fight? Your grandmother didn't fight. Your mother didn't fight. Your sisters didn't fight. You belong to me." Sarah lifted her head boldly. "No," she said with a steady voice. "I belong to God." The figure roared and sent chains flying toward her. But before they reached her, a blinding lion-shaped light crashed into the room. The great lion roared once, one powerful, shaking roar, and every chain shattered into dust. The dark figure screamed and disappeared. Sarah woke up gasping, but her room felt peaceful, warm, safe. It was the first time she slept without fear in months. Something had shifted in the spirit. From that day on, Sarah changed. Her prayers became bold. Her voice carried authority. She began to fast. She prayed for her sisters, for her mother, for her future husband, for her unborn children. The atmosphere in the house started to change. Little breakthroughs began to show. She started a small online business. Orders increased. Money began to come in. She was able to save for the first time in her life. She enrolled in a professional course. Her mother, seeing the change in Sarah, rededicated her life to Christ. Her sisters slowly began praying too. The darkness that had hovered over the family for decades started losing its grip. Then came the night of final confrontation. Sarah was praying when she felt a heaviness fall in her room. It wasn't fear. It was something ancient, something ancestral. She stood up. Something ignited inside her. She began declaring with fire, "Every altar speaking against the women in this family, fall." The room felt like it shook. She continued, "Every curse of poverty, heartbreak, failure, break." Then suddenly, a vision burst before her eyes. She saw her grandmother smiling, peaceful, free for the first time, and she heard a gentle voice say, "You did what we couldn't. You broke what held us. You are the one God chose." Sarah collapsed to her knees, crying uncontrollably. She knew it was over. The curse had finally ended. In the months that followed, her life transformed. Her business grew. She became financially stable. She secured a good job. She began mentoring other young women. Peace filled their home like a new fragrance. Her mother laughed again. Her sisters healed. Her entire bloodline shifted because one young woman dared to stand. Sarah became the first woman in her family to build a stable life, to walk in spiritual freedom, to rise beyond generational patterns, to build a future not defined by suffering. She would look into the mirror sometimes, smile softly, and whisper, "The curse ended with me." Some people are born into luxury. Others are born into battle. But a few, very few, are born to be cycle breakers. And if life has fought you harder than others, maybe you are the one, the chosen, the cycle breaker, the one hell fears, the one heaven has anointed. Your story will not end like your family's story, because with you, the cycle ends.